कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So I'll speak today on the topic of how to better manage our mind. Based on the Bhagavad Gita, this is text 6, chapter 6, text 26. I'll explain the meaning of the verse, we'll recite the verse, and then we'll discuss it. So, yato nischalati. Yato means wherever and whenever. Nischalati means because of being restless. Nischalati. Yato, you can try to repeat after me. Yato nischalati. And manas chanchalam asthiram. The mind is restless and it is unsteady. Manas chanchalam asthiram. Then tatastato. Okay. So first was yato, wherever and whenever. That tato is the response. Wherever and whenever the mind wanders, tatastato niyamya. Restrain it, redirect it. Tatastato niyamya. Atmanya is the self. Eva, certainly. Vasham is control. Bring it under the control of the self. Nayed, bring it, send it, get it. Atmanyeva vasham nayed. Yato nischalati. Manas chanchalamasthiram. Tatastato niyamyaitat. Atmanyeva vasham nayed. Yato nischalati. मनश्चञ्चलमस्थिरम् ततस्ततो नियम्यैतत् आत्मन्येव वशं नये. So one last time, we'll try to recite it together, all of us. Yato nischalati मनश्चञ्चलमस्थिरम् ततस्ततो नियम्यैतत् आत्मन्येव वशं नयेत्. Thank you. So I'll use this as a whiteboard for writing and drawing a few things. Am I audible to everyone? Thank you. So once a person was driving through a very barren forested kind of area and basically secluded, and suddenly his car stopped working and got a flat. Now he wanted a jack so that he could fix the car. And he looked around and he saw that in his toolkit he had forgotten to put a jack. God, what I didn't have a jack. And started looking around. And he saw a house nearby. And he thought maybe they might have a jack. But then he thought, I desperately need a jack. And for this person, I'm a stranger. Will they give me a jack or not? And if they ask for a jack, will this person be a selfish person who will want to exploit the opportunity? They'll charge me just for the use of a jack for one time. How much might they charge? $5, $10, $100. I have to go urgently for a meeting. If he senses that I am so desperate, he charges $500 for a jack. Will I pay it or not? And as he was thinking like this, what if this person charges $10,000 for the use of that? And he started seething with anger. By the time I knocked on the door, and a friendly looking person opened the door. Yes, he says, "Go to hell, you keep your jack, I don't need it." Now, what had happened here was the mental reality had become so big that the physical reality had become irrelevant. So, in general, for all of us, but there are these two realities that are always uh, competing. So, the Bhagavad Gita, I'll explain, this story might seem humorous, but actually, it illustrates an important principle of how we tend to function and how we need to function. The Gita explains that our existence is three level. There is the soul, the mind, and the body. And this refers to our three sides: spiritual, mental, and physical sides. This is akin, if you have a computer system, this is akin to the user, the software, and the hardware. So now, from the soul, consciousness comes out. The soul is the source of consciousness. And this consciousness, when it comes out from the soul, it comes through the mind to the body and then moves out through the body. So, for example, right now, if you are perceiving me, you're hearing what I'm speaking. So, what exactly is happening is you, the soul, you're observing what I'm speaking or saying or writing through your eyes, and then you're taking in the input. This for proper perception to happen, the soul, mind, and body have to be in alignment. The consciousness that comes from the soul, this is consciousness, Chaitanya, as it is called in Sanskrit. So we could say the consciousness is something similar to if I have a flashlight on my phone. So the flashlight is like the soul. And now this particular flashlight is the light itself is the source, is the soul, and the beam of light coming from it is consciousness. Now, when this consciousness comes out, normally for functioning properly, it comes through the mind, through the body to the outer world. But sometimes the mind and the body go out of sync. When the mind and the body go out of sync, that means the soul is here, the body is still here, but the mind is somewhere here. Then the consciousness that is coming out, part of the consciousness comes out here, majority of the consciousness goes there. And that's when we say somebody is absent-minded. So the greater the misalignment between the mind and the body, between the mind and the senses, the more distorted becomes our perception. So basically, I use the word physical reality, which is perceived through the senses, and there is mental reality. Now, the question might come up, is what is perceived by the mind real or not? Well, I use the word reality because for us, it seems real. For that person who was walking along, oh, this person charges me $10, charges me $100, $500. What kind of selfish person would prey on a person who is helpless like this? That person is having a whole heated dialogue inside their mind. And that experience was extremely real for that person. And it was so real that it became eventually realer than physical reality. And that is why when that person just opened the door, said, what can I do for you? Get lost. I don't want you. Jack. So in some cases, what happens is the mental reality becomes much bigger than the physical reality. And when there is a total disconnection between mental reality and physical reality, that is the state which we technically call as insanity. So insanity, when you say, "Are you mad?" When you say something to someone, what does it mean? This is not the kind of response that should be there to some small situation like this. So, what you are saying, we just suggest something to someone. Can you just, can you just take out the waste? The Can you just take out the trash? Oh, you are such a domineering, dictatorial person. What happened? I just made a simple request. Why are you calling me something like this? So what has happened is, for them, it's not just the person out there and what we spoke. They have created a picture of us in their mind. And that picture which they have created in their mind, they are responding to that picture. And the greater the misalignment between the picture that they have created in their mind and the reality of who we are, or the in general reality of situation, the more unbalanced their responses are likely. So when people's responses become completely disconnected from physical reality, that's when you may think, oh, this person is so mentally unstable. Maybe this person has to be needs some mental health care. Maybe they have to put in a admitted in a mental health care center or whatever. So the idea is, it is vital for our functioning that our mind and be aligned, that the consciousness be aligned. So when this misalignment is there, the mental, physical misalignment, at the least, it can lead to some level of distraction, inattention, and sometimes that can just be harmless or humorous. Some people just, they're absent-minded. We all have probably heard of the story of the absent-minded professor. Where are my glasses? Where are my glasses? Searching everywhere. The glasses are just on top of their head. They're searching everywhere. So that's just humorous. It could be. But it is not just distraction. It can even lead to destruction. Destruction means when the person starts responding violently or destructively based on their imagination of what they're doing, then it can be a serious problem. I would like to talk about this particular. So what Krishna is telling, the verse that we discussed, yato yato nischalati manaschanchalamasta. The mind will go away in its imaginative fantasies. That is a tendency of the mind. But it is our responsibility to get it back to reality. The verse that Krishna is speaking, essentially it could be paraphrased as, the mind may stray away. That's just the nature of the mind. If we have a pet, if we have a child, the child may just, for playing and maybe innocently, maybe whatever reason, may just go wander away. The mind may stray away. Let the mind not stay away. It may stray away, let it not stay away. It is our responsibility to get the mind back to reality so that we can function properly. So I'll talk about one story from the Ramayana which illustrates this principle with dramatic and tragic consequences. And then we will talk about three principles by which we can get a better alignment between ourselves and our mind, between our body, mind, and soul, basically. So this incident is in the start of the Ramayana, in the Ayodhya Kand. We know that King Dashrath was the king of Ayodhya, and as he started seeing some signs of aging, he decided that maybe it's time for me to retire. Maybe it's time for me to now hand over the kingdom to the successor. And he felt Ram was an eminently worthy successor. And that's what he planned. He talked with his ministers, he talked with his astrologers, and they said, if you do it immediately, it's a good time. After that, things can become very dark for you. Okay, let's do it immediately. And because he was planning to do it immediately, so somehow Bharat and Shatrugna, who were in another kingdom, there was no time to call them back. And then when the news spread that Ram was going to be coronated, everybody celebrated except for one person. Who was that one person? Manthara. She was the maid of one of the queens of Dashrath, that was Kaikai. And Manthara, she was a hunchback person. And sometimes because of her hunchback, she would be teased, she would be the butt of jokes. And she hated that. Sometimes some jokes might be made without any malice. It's out of playfulness, but the other person might not take them playful. She hated that. And then when Kaikai became the favorite queen of Dashrath, and she was the favorite maid servant of Kaikai, so her position in the royal assembly, the palace is basically in the royal staff, it became a very important position. And because she was such a powerful position, nobody could dare make jokes at her. And she started thinking, if Kaikai is no longer the favorite queen of the king, because the king only is someone else, and if her privileged position goes away, my privileged position goes away. And therefore, she started hatching a conspiracy to try to prevent this from happening. And she poisoned the mind of Kaikai. And the whole story is quite dramatic. And of course, it's dramatic and traumatic the way it happened. But I'll just talk about 2-3 main points which are of interest for us understanding this. That she started just making her case. He said, "No, a great danger has befallen us." What happened? Like I asked. Actually, the king is going to take away the kingdom from you, all power from you. He's going to make Ram the king. That's wonderful. Ram is eminently qualified to be the king. So she took out her necklace and gave it to her. And said, "You have got such wonderful news for me. Here is a gift for you." Manthara hurled the necklace on the ground. He said, "You are a royal woman. Do you not understand the ways of kings? Have you no sense of diplomacy? This whole thing is a plot hatched by your co-wife, Kaushalya. She wants to take the power away from you. And that is why it is her son that is being made the king." No, Ram and Bharat are close friends. Ram is becoming the king now. In future, Bharat may become the king. Don't you understand? Once the throne passes to that side, it is going to stay on that side. After Ram, it will be Ram's sons who will become the king. You will lose it forever. And if Ram perceives that Bharat is a threat, Ram may exile Bharat. He may even find some charges, frame him, and have Bharat executed. Ram will never do like that. Ram loves Bharat. Really? If you think everything is above board, then why is the ceremony being done so hastily in the absence of Bharat? This was the first point that got to Kaikai. Oh, yeah, why is it like this? And Manthara was noticing. As she was noticing, he caught that. She started hammering. And for several hours, her harangue went on. And by the end, she was completely convinced. She had completely convinced Kaikai that this was a plot to defraud Bharat of his rights. The Kaikai was not a bad person. And initially, when Manthara said, "Oh, this is Kaushalya getting back at you. This is your co-wife getting back at you," he said, "Okay." She was not too alarmed by it. But when it came to Bharat being defrauded of the kingdom, Bharat being threatened, it was both the competitive jealousy, what was a little there, combined with her maternal instincts of looking out for her son. They all got combined in a mess. And then we know what happened. She insisted, she went to Dashrath and insisted that Ram be banished for 14 years and Bharat be made the king. Now, if you see, nothing had actually happened. Like the story, like we talk about the Jack, that person, the owner of that house, had not made any unreasonable demand. And this car driver was reacting to his own mental picture of what was happening. So similarly, nobody had threatened Kaikai. Nobody had expressed any antipathy towards Bharat. She was basically reacting to her own mental image. Now, of course, that mental image had been triggered by Manthara. But the result was not just some distraction, it was devastation. It was. Dashrath could not bear the separation from his son and he was killed. And she, even then, Dashrath begged her initially before that. He says, I will not be able to live without Ram. If you want Bharat to be the king, that's okay, but don't send Ram away. What harm, what is wrong has he done to you? She was just not ready to listen. And then finally, even after Dashrath died, her heart was still cold. So the Mahabharata describes that Kaikai was kind, gentle, and wise. Kind means in her heart, gentle means in her speech, and wise is in her intelligence. But she became cruel, harsh, and foolish. That's the extent of the perversion of her character that happened. And this continued on till finally Bharat came back. And when Bharat came back, at that time, Bharat felt something terribly wrong. So normally, whenever he would come back, there would be a welcoming party to welcome him back. His father would be there to welcome him home. Nothing was there. The whole of Ayodhya seemed to be like a ghost town. And he came to his mother's palace. I asked her, what's happening? Why is everybody so morose? And she spoke in almost a stone-like voice. He says, oh Bharat, the king has departed to the next world, and now the kingdom awaits you for taking up the responsibility of kingship. Bharat was shocked. He said, what happened? And then started narrating everything that happened. She started telling how I have gone to such lengths to protect your interests and to protect you. Now, for Bharat, it was one after another shocks. First was that his father had died itself was a shock. Second, that his brother had been exiled was another shock. His brother was virtuous. Why would he be exiled? Third was that his mother had been behind all this was an even greater shock. And on top of it, that his mother was claiming that she had done all this for him and she expected him to be pleased by all this. So when somebody does something terrible to supposedly to please her, it raises a lot of questions. First of all, we start thinking, what kind of person are you? And what kind of person do you think I am? That I'll be pleased by something like this. So that was the time Bharat said, you cannot be my mother. You must be the goddess of destruction, incarnated into our family to destroy our entire dynasty. What have you done? At that point, the imaginary Bharat that she had created in her mind, whose interest she was protecting, and who was appreciating, in her mind, she had created Bharat who was appreciating her. Oh, you have done such something so difficult for me. That imaginary Bharat, and then the real Bharat. There was a heavy collision between the two of them. And ultimately, facts win simply because they are facts. So it was at this collision, the mental reality and the physical reality, when it collided, that's when she realized, what have I done? She repented terribly after that. There are songs written in the Ramayana literature about about her repentance, but by that time it's too late. Dashrath had already died. So our mind wandering off is not just a matter of we not being able to concentrate during our work, or we're not being as productive as we would like to be, we not being there for our loved ones as much as we would like to be. Yes, that is all there. But the mind can wander off far great, much more. It wanders off, the greater the distance between the mental and the physical realities, what happens is the greater that is chance that we will get misled. And once we get misled, then eventually there's going to be a violent collision between the two of them. So I imagine that I'm a good person, but I'm doing bad things. I keep believing that I'm a good person, but eventually the bad actions will have consequences. And by that time, it may be too late. So I'll talk about three broad principles which we can use, drawing from the story of Kaikai and drawing from our broad life itself. What can we do to ensure that if we wander off into our mental realities, we all will. We all have, whenever we see people, our mind is constantly passing comments about people. It's just, I suppose, if the now cricket World Cup is going on, people watch the cricket World Cup, but even if you are on the stadium, they're watching the World Cup, but people often have some earphone or something because they want to hear the commentary. Because what is happening is you're watching, but the commentary in one sense enhances the experience. If the commentator is expert, then what we are seeing, it's put in a bigger context. Oh, he hit this shot, it's such a good shot. This is similar to the shot that he had played in this particular match. Or this is a similar situation like that situation. So the commentary is meant to enhance the experience. But often our mind is a commentator that detracts from the experience. Like some commentators are very biased. So like a team is very much down and the batsman is batting very well and is leading a recovery. And the commentator says, oh, that was just a good lucky shot. Oh, yeah, he just got lucky. That bowler didn't bowl very well. And oh, the batsman is batting very well. It is just one wrong shot and this whole recovery is going to be destroyed. So if the commentator is constantly detracting from the experience of real life, then it's much more damaging. So what happens is the mind is a constant commentator. It is commenting constantly. So right now you're hearing this class, your mind will be commenting, hey, this is interesting, this is boring, it's going too long. This is too hot over here. I just came, this is too analytical. I came to hear some katha, but what is going on? Or this is too close for comfort. This is describing my life only. I don't know. So our mind is often passing comments, and based on those comments, if the mind, this is too boring, the mind passes that comment, and we start thinking, when will this get over? When can I get out of here? So the comments are constantly going on. And depending on what the comments are, our experience of the reality can be enhanced or it can be depleted. So what if we look at Kaikai and Manthara, they're dynamic. What were the things that Kaikai did which were wrong, and how can we avoid those things? So I'll talk about three things. I'll talk about three principles using the acronym ONE. The one thing that Kaikai did was completely one-sided picture. She just heard from Manthara alone. And she just believed it. Now she could have, now Manthara was her associate, as a maid servant. So she couldn't very well have turned or rejected Manthara at that time. But in general, even if she had to hear, she didn't have to only hear her. So for us, our mind is going to make comments, and we generally, we all have certain biases, certain prejudices, certain preconceptions of how things are or how people are. And generally speaking, what happens? Say, if there are people, hmm, somebody whom we like and somebody whom we dislike. Now, if somebody whom we like, we see them eating an impressive quantity of food. Then, if we like them, we will say, must have been hungry. Hmm? If we don't like them, we see, what a glutton. So now the event is exactly the same. But depending on our likes or dislikes, our mind gives a different picture to that reality. Similarly, if somebody is sleeping for too long, see, must have been very tired. Or maybe they are sick. If we like them, we don't like them, what a lazy person. So the same activity. So in general, we need to understand that our mind will usually give us a one-sided picture of reality. And so we all have a mantra like mind inside us. And there are things people we don't like. Have any of you heard of this word? So now generally, when does gossip happen? Now gossip happens when we hear something we like about someone we don't like. So when we hear something we like about someone we don't like, then, oh, this person pretends to be such a good person. Now I come to know the real story. Now in public interest, I'm going to tell everyone. So basically, we all have a mantra inside us, and we can't get rid of this mantra. The mind is like that. The mind has its own picture of preconception about how things are. That doesn't mean all of it is wrong, but it can be wrong. So because of that, we just get one-sided understanding of reality. And the mind tends to give a particular kind of commentary which takes us in a particular direction. So Mantra Kaike's first mistake was that she heard from one person only. And then what was the acronym I said I'll use? One. So that's the same thing. No, she did not take no alternative perspective. Instead of demanding, this was her mistake. Instead of demanding from Dashrath, send Ram away and give Bharat the kingdom, she could have at least given him the benefit of the doubt and asked him, okay, what's going on? Why is this coronation of Ram being done so hastily? Now, if she felt that Dashrath was the main person in the conspiracy, she could have gone to someone else. She could have gone to Sumantra, the minister. She could have gone to Vashishta, the sage. Vashishta had lived in the kingdom for a long time. He always been detached and a simple person. He was going to the priest irrespective of who became the king. So he didn't have any axe to grind. So she could have asked someone else. So for all of us, it's vital that we have alternative perspectives. We need to make sure that we have people in our lives whom we can trust. We can say that, how can I trust anyone? Yeah, it's not easy to trust people. But over a period of time, we need to have someone whose inputs we can consider. See, for most people, if I'm here, my mind is here, and then the other person is here. So me, my mind, and the other person. That means whatever the other person does, I perceive through the filter of my mind. So now if somebody is very nice and polite to us, immediately mind says, what does this person want from you? Now it could be like that, that person is flattering us because they want something for us. It can also be that that person is a kind and gentle person. But our mind, generally, our mind has its own preconceptions and we perceive the world and people in the world through that. But when we have a close relationship, it could be with a friend, it could be with a spiritual guide, it could be with a mentor, it could be with even a family member. But a close relationship essentially means that I am here, my mind is here, and the other person is here. So then what happens is I see, okay, the mind is saying like this, the other person is saying like this. Now, what is the reality? We can evaluate. Otherwise, everybody, if we are perceiving through the filter of the mind, we will be trapped. We'll never be able to escape. So it is important for us to invest in at least some close relationships. And even if we don't have close relationships, at least some relationships are important. You will see, as in society, this is a curious phenomena that at one level, we can say physical comforts are increasing enormously. Now, today we have air conditioning, air transport, we have so many things. But mental peace, mental health is declining at the same time. Now, there could be many reasons for this, but one of the reasons is that relationships are becoming weaker and weaker. And when we don't have close relationships, then we are too caught in our own mind. And then we don't have anyone to give us an alternative perspective to the mind's perspective. One of my friends in California is in mental health profession. He's actually a suicide helpline counselor. And that means when people are about to commit suicide, they just call this helpline. And then they have just a few moments to talk something by which that person will not go over the edge. It's a very difficult thing. And sometimes people just need one word of encouragement, one reason to live. But if they don't get that, it will be as bad as they ending their own lives. Very few times people end their lives because they are starving and they don't have food. If there are problems, and everybody has problems, of course, some people can have far bigger problems than others. But the mind makes problems seem unbearable. So we all face loss in life. Everybody faces loss. It may be loss of a loved one, it may be loss of a job, it may be loss of some reputation, it may be loss of our health. We all face loss in our life. But a healthy, mentally healthy person, it's objective. I have lost. Yes, I lost this, and okay, let's see how to deal with it. But a little more negative is how we interpret it is I am lost. I just don't know what to do. But the most damaging interpretation is I am a loser. When we start interpreting in such a way, I am a loser, then nobody wants to be a loser. So why should I even live? I was in Kota in India a few months ago. Kota is a place where Indian students go for studying for IIT. And just in the last 6 months, there have been 5 dozen young kids who have committed suicide over it. Okay, you don't get good marks. It's not a good thing, but it's not worth ending one's life. For them, the marks are not just marks. The mind builds a whole reality around it. Oh, I couldn't crack this exam, that I am a loser. So, yes, in our mind, the importance of that particular exam might be there. In India, whenever the youth commit suicide is mostly because of academic performance. In the West, when youth often end their lives, or whenever they end their lives, it's often due to relationship issues. If this person rejected me, and now I am unloved and I am unlovable. Once somebody starts thinking I'm unlovable, that means I'm a loser. What is the point even of living? So our mind has its own. Earlier I talked about biases, but our mind also has its attachments. And because of those attachments, we consider some things to be far more important than what they actually are. Marks are important, no doubt, but they're not so important that one should end one's life over. Having a relationship is important, but not so important that if a relationship doesn't work out, I should end my life. But the mind has its own perspective, has its own narrative, and we need to have somebody who gives us an alternative narrative. So Kaikai's mistake was she did not consider any alternative perspective. So when our mind starts saying, "Oh, this person is terrible, the world is terrible, this is like that is like that," okay, we have someone to talk to. Actually, the Bhagavad Gita and the Association of Devotees, where we hear the Bhagavad Gita, it helps us see another picture of reality. The Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavatam, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, all of these describe people who have suffered in many ways, sometimes much more than what we have suffered. But they survived, they even thrived too. So seek alternative perspectives. That's vital. And that's why when we come to satsang programs like this is not just some ritual, cultural, or traditional activity, not just some entertainment, hearing some stories. It is basically we give ourselves an alternative to the way the mind is interpreting things. So that's the second point. And the third point, what is the acronym we are using? One. So E actually it means endurance. Endurance essentially means that which endures, that which lasts. So a person who has endurance can last through difficulties. So endurance here, it simply means one thing, that no irreversible decisions from reversible emotions. So endurance basically you could mean pause or patience. So in general, there are times when we will feel terribly down, we will feel terribly angry, we may feel betrayed, we may feel shattered, and these are all understandable emotions. But the fact is, the say we hear somebody did this person spoke like this about me. How could this person have spoken like this about me? I have been nothing but kind to this person. Such a horrible person. We may feel enraged by that person, and that emotion is understandable. But that does not mean we have to immediately take action. Maybe at that time, if we go and lash at that person, then we might destroy the relationship completely. It may be that we got only a partial picture of the reality, or it could be that it's real, but maybe that level of reaction is only going to make things worse. So basically, pause. So now, if if Kaikai had just paused a little, it is inside the family only. Even if Ram had become the king, it is not that that decision cannot be reversed in the future. But her action, what she took, her emotion of fear, anxiety, anger, whatever emotion was there, it was the emotion that came and it went. But in that emotion, there was a action that she did, which had irreversible consequences. She did an action which caused the death of her husband, and that was tragic. So, generally speaking, when our mind starts giving its own picture of reality to us, and that starts triggering very strong emotions within us. So, we may feel impelled, I want to hit out at this person. Just try to pause. Just try to be patient. Just try to endure those emotions. This does not mean we have to suppress those emotions. It does not mean that if we are feeling angry, we are just act polite and not do anything about the anger. We have to deal with that emotion afterwards. But just don't act on that emotion immediately. Be patient. So endurance means, let's see, whenever if we have to handle emotions, if we consider an emotion like anger, now one option could be that we suppress the emotion. The other is that we express the emotion. Now, if we are angry and we express the emotion, then what happens is the other person burns. We may speak words that can scar the other person for life. But if we are feeling angry and we don't express it at all, we suppress it, then what happens is eventually we burn. We start burning internally. And eventually, this is like this is one extreme of the pendulum. From here, eventually, after some time, we will explode. And at that time, that person might do some small thing and will explode. It's not because of the small thing, it is because of the 1751 things that had happened before. So, in between these two is that we process the emotion. Not simply express, not simply repress or suppress, but we process the emotion. Now, processing might, again, one of the best ways to process it, just pause. So today I feel extremely angry, but maybe after 24 hours, the anger will still be there, but it won't have that much control over it. And then I can analyze it, I can process it. We can talk with someone. So when we learn to process it, then we'll be able to ensure that the gap between the mental reality and the physical reality, that is not violently destructive, but rather it can be amicably joined together. The gap can be, the link, the bridge can be established in a gentle, amicable way that is going to make things better and not things worse. There is always going to be a gap. We can't avoid that. That's why the mind will stray away. It will create its own picture of reality, but let it not stay away. And especially if we practice bhakti, when we chant the holy names, when we come to a temple, what it does is it gives us a very strong resource to manage our mind. Bhakti connects us with Krishna, and then Krishna's strength helps us to get the mind back. The mind will go off, but it helps us get the mind back to the physical, to the actual reality as it is. And that's how we can handle our mind better. We can ensure that we can function in a way that is constructive for our future and not destructive. So I'll summarize what we discussed today. I talked about three main points. First, I talked about, or rather, 4 points. First, I talked about how the mental reality and the physical reality, they can have a huge divergence. I started with the story of the car driver who wanted a jack, and then the story of Kai. So basically, our mind creates its own understanding of how things are. The soul is here, the body is here, but the mind goes off somewhere else. And because of that, there's a disconnect between how things are and how we think things are. And Krishna is saying this is going to happen. The mind will go away, the mind will stray away. But when it strays, bring it back. Don't let it stay away. So we don't let it stay away. So how do we do this? For that, I discussed 3 points that I use the acronym. What is the acronym? One. So this is basically 3 things which we keep in mind for dealing with the mind. So one is, the mind always gives us a one-sided picture, that based on the impressions that are there in the mind. If I like someone, all their actions I'll see positively. If I dislike someone, I'll see their actions negatively. So Manthara gave a one-sided picture to Kaikai. Our mind tends to give the one-sided picture. It's like a commentator, but the commentator is, it's not a reliable commentator. If we know in advance that this is the kind of picture my mind gives to me, then we can be alert. We don't get carried away by it. So how do we avoid that? What her mistake was that there was no alternative picture, no alternative perspective. So what we need is, we need some friends, we need some relationships, by which what we are thinking, we have somebody else who gives us another picture of it. If I am here, my mind is here, and this other person is here, then we can evaluate which is reality. Otherwise, we just interpret the mind's idea only to be the reality. And when this happens, that's when we processing loss, we start jump straight to I am a loser. And that is a very destructive interpretation. Like people who are contemplating suicide, just one kind word can stop them from going over the edge. That may not solve all their problems, but at least it ensures that the mind doesn't dominate the picture of reality and be destructive. And the last step I discussed was, do you remember? Endurance. Endurance means that focus on that which endures. The emotions that we have, they'll come and they will go. So the key is, we don't let reversible emotions impel us to irreversible actions. So that does not mean that we deny the emotions. Doesn't mean necessarily suppress the emotions, but we don't just express, nor do we just suppress. What we do is we process. And in that way, we will be able to get a better handle on how to deal with our mind and how to bridge the gap between our actual reality and the mental picture of the reality. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Yes, please. Yeah, please. Of course. The front. Sorry, you're unable to what exactly? Yeah. So when I say, I talk about the alternative perspective, that comes from relationship. It comes from our relationship with others. It comes from our relationship with those who are related with Krishna. It comes from our relationship with Krishna also. So, in general, for most people, to immediately relate with Krishna is quite difficult. So at least in our small world, we have a slightly bigger picture. We have someone who offers a slightly bigger picture. And rightly, over a period of time, the bigger picture expands and expands till we can see that God has the ultimate picture. So yes, if we can connect with Krishna, that's good. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna offers the multiple levels of connecting with him, 12.8 to 12.12. So if you can be absorbed in me, that's great. You can't be absorbed in me, try to fix your mind on me. Can't fix your mind on me, work for me. If you can't work for me, Krishna says, at least work for some higher cause. So that way, just having some alternative picture, if it comes from Krishna, that's the best. But if not, from anybody else also it comes a picture, that's good. Any other questions or comments? Happy to exercise. Thank you so much. So, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki